Leaders include Jarl and Pamela Mohn, focusing on civil liberties, foster youth, public radio, and the arts. And the Public Welfare Foundation, committed to advancing transformative youth and criminal justice reforms.
This is Charlotte Talks. I'm Mike Collins. The 116th NAACP convention opened in Charlotte over the weekend. The theme of this annual convention is the fierce urgency of now. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. used that phrase during a speech at the Lincoln Memorial during 1963's March on Washington.
We have also come to this hallowed spot to remind America of the fierce urgency of now. This is no time to engage in the luxury of cooling off or to take the tranquilizing drug of gradualism. Now is the time to make real the promises of democracy.
King was calling for the democratic ideals upon which this nation was founded to be made available to all people, no matter the color of their skin. He was asking for civil rights to be extended. The NAACP was fighting for those same rights and had been since 1909. Today, that fight continues, and the NAACP believes, or sees what it believes, is backsliding, both on civil rights and on the promises of democracy. And that is why they borrowed King's phrase, the fierce urgency of now, as the theme to their convention. And it's why they broke with a long-standing tradition of not inviting the sitting president to appear at the convention. Donald Trump was not invited. But many other significant individuals have appeared here over the last several days and engaged in wide-ranging discussions about challenges the nation continues to confront in terms of equality and equal treatment and ongoing efforts by the NAACP to ensure our democratic ideals are enjoyed by all. So this hour, we're going to take a closer look at what has been top of mind at that convention, the history of the organization and its future. And for that purpose, we are joined by Trovon Williams. He's Senior Vice President of Marketing and Communications with the NAACP. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. Thanks for having me.
First of all, how's the turnout been for this convention? Because last year it was in Las Vegas. I think 23,000 people turned out. How many people have poured into your convention here in Charlotte?
Well, certainly Charlotte has delivered, and we were so enthusiastic about being here. And the number of people who have showed up has made us even that much more enthusiastic. We have over 7,000 people who have registered over the last several days itself. I'll get the final count here in the next couple of days because we are allowing people to register even on site. But the last number I heard was over 7,000, and we're absolutely ecstatic about the turnout here in Charlotte.
So that tells us we need to add casinos to make Charlotte as popular as Vegas.
Let's make it happen. Well, let's go, Charlotte.
Okay. So when Dr. King spoke of the fierce urgency of now, it was a very different time. It was before the Civil Rights Act. It was before the Voting Rights Act. He used those words as a kind of Sermon on the Mount, literally and figuratively, as speaking from the steps of the Lincoln Memorial, at the culmination of a march that demanded those rights, that demanded an end to segregation, an end to police brutality, an increase in the minimum wage, enactment of fair labor standards, and more. Talk about what it should say to us now, today, that phrase, the urgency of now, continues to resonate.
Well, I think it speaks to sort of the pivotal moment we are here as a country collectively. Most of the things that you just made mention to, Mike, are things that we are seeing in some cases being drifted away from. We're seeing the dismantling of our democracy. We're seeing sort of this unification of our America, the promise that this nation has made. It seems like we're waning away from that as slowly but surely, whether it be from Supreme Court decisions or from executive orders. We're seeing the country slide backwards. And so we're not going to wait until those things start to come to materialization. We want to see every community across this country understand what's taking place and lean in that much harder into preserving our democracy and advancing it to fulfill the promise that it made.
This fight for civil rights, I guess, really began, I don't know whether you can pinpoint it to the end of slavery or you pinpoint it to the end of Reconstruction, which plunged people backwards again, or you can pinpoint it to the beginnings of your organization in 1909. But your organization has been fighting this for a very long time. Dr. King was a Johnny come lately to the progress of all of this, because you were involved almost 50 years before he had an impact on the scene. Should we be surprised that this is going on still today?
No, I think from my dealings both at the association, but just from a historical relevance standpoint, every time we've seen significant advancement, not just across the Black community, across all communities, except whether it be LGBTQ plus, whether it be women, etc., we've always seen this pendulum swing both ways. And so this has sort of been the trajectory that we've seen across the history of our nation, really on the fight from a democracy standpoint, is that this pendulum swings both ways. We've seen amazing advancement over the last 30 or 40 years, and there's always going to be some who are on the opposite side of that as well. And so we're seeing some of the materialization of that pendulum swing in real time. What becomes absolutely pivotal for both my community and communities at large is for us to stand our ground, be unified as much as possible in these moments, and ensuring that we do not go backwards, and ensure that we're in the best possible position when that pendulum swings the other way, because it will in fact swing the other way.
And will it continue to swing? I mean, you've been fighting this battle for a very long time, you and others, but is this our fate? Are we doomed to repeat this cycle over and over and over forevermore?
Well, I think Chairman Russell, who delivered our opening public mass remarks, he spoke about the history of the United States itself, and talking about this democracy experiment that we are consistently in pursuit of, and working through itself. Anytime you're working with an experiment, there's going to be tweaks. There's going to be things that you learn and evolve. And so what's important for us as an NAACP community is to ensure that the pendulum doesn't swing. But so far, there's always going to be those who are, in opposition of the things that we see as advancement and far as the country. But it's our job to ensure that the pendulum never swings. But so far, this is an experiment as a country. We know that. But it's ensuring that we take everybody into consideration. And we're seeing that the efforts that are going on in real time right now do not take everyone in consideration.
These attacks on democracy have a lot of people been saying that, well, this is the American experiment. You've just said it several times in the last few minutes, and other people have echoed that phrase over the last few months and years. At what point will the experiment no longer be an experiment? I mean, we've been doing this now this way for 200 and some years. At some point, experiments end and tradition begins. It becomes part of the fabric of our being. At what point will that happen? Or will we always be in this experiment?
Well, I certainly hope not, but I'm optimistic at a lot of the advancements that we've seen. To your point with an experiment, anytime an experiment is being done, you're collecting data, you're collecting insights in order to reinforce what it is that you're testing. We've seen that the best moments of this nation are skewed around our ability to unify our base, for us to allow a democracy to run at its full weight, for there to be representation across the entire country. Even from a business standpoint, diversity has in fact been good for business, for everybody itself. And so I would be reluctant to say that I know when the experiment itself would end, but I'm optimistic in what I've seen in many respects with regards to the advancements that we've made during this experiment, and saying I want to push a little bit further and see how much further we can advance towards the promises this country has made us.
It has been the tradition of the NAACP in its long history to invite the sitting president of the United States to attend and to speak. Harry Truman, the president who integrated the military, was the first president to be invited and both to speak. That was back in 1947. Some presidents have declined to attend or to speak. Many accepted. You invited candidate Trump to attend prior to his first term in office, and you invited him every year of his first term to speak. You invited candidate Trump this time around to speak, but he's never accepted. But now that he is back in the White House, you had decided not to invite him at all. And NAACP President Derek Johnson elaborated on that in a conversation with CBS News.
This time, not only are we not going to waste the invitation, we don't want him on our stage because what he has done in the past, and he does not respect the Constitution. We embrace the Constitution, and we would not invite anyone on our stage who simply cannot agree on the guardrails of a constitutional democracy, and that's something we don't see him respecting.
I'm sure that was not a unilateral decision, because that's a big decision to make. How was that decision reached?
So certainly our leadership council of the NAACP, inclusive of President Johnson and much of our board members themselves, sat down and made a very, very tough decision. As you made mention to, this has been a tradition of the organization pretty much from its inception itself. And we've obviously, to your point, had presidents who have accepted, but everyone has been extended the invitation. So we understood the magnitude of the decision that the organization was making. And so President Johnson did not make that decision lightly. There was consideration that was made both from our local leadership, our national leadership, and then also from our board from across the country itself to get a sense as to whether or not this was the decision that we collectively agreed on. And I think collectively our organization came to a realization that, I'm going to use some more modern. We're not going to let somebody come and play in our face, Mike. We're just not going to have it. We've seen the actions that are taking place from across the country. The audio is not matching the video. All the things that we're hearing from many cases from this administration are in direct conflict to what the Constitution stands for and direct conflict around this democracy that we love and cherish so dearly. And so we are having productive and progressive conversations on our stage. And this was not a year that we wanted to have the President of the United States come and sort of play a weird game of gotcha with our community. There's too much at stake.
So I have a lot of questions about this, but I guess the main question is a lot of people probably feel this way. A lot of organizations probably feel this way. Many of them, if not most of them, have said nothing. You have taken a stand. Why?
I think if we're not speaking vocally around the states of our community, what is the purpose that we're serving here? We have to be a large voice for our community in any way, shape, or form. And that means sometimes doing the uncomfortable thing, shaking the table and making people very, very much aware of the fact that what's happening is not okay. And there are people that are in positions. Our organization was granted the opportunity to speak out on behalf of marginalized communities. If we are not speaking audibly, not in secret, not in corners, not in emails, but audibly to the masses and letting them know where we find there to be conflict to the things that we stand for, that we're not serving the purpose of the community that we serve. So I think it's our absolute obligation as an organization to speak on behalf of our community.
You are in charge of marketing and communications for the NAACP, and therefore you are in charge of messaging. So I will ask you I will say that NAACP President Derek Johnson is not alone in this opinion about Trump moving us away from democracy or attempting to, and that he does not respect the Constitution. But not many leaders outside the Democratic Party are willing to say that, as I just said. Is it better to call it out as you see it and risk alienating some people who are perhaps already in your coalition? Because there are African Americans who support Donald Trump, who are part of the MAGA movement. Is it better to alienate them with a statement like you've made here this morning and the fact that you didn't invite the president, or what?
I think it's a great question. What we found, and I think more than anything else, the stance that we're taking allows for further discussion. NAACP is a nonpartisan organization itself, but I think it lends itself to just how important this moment is. That we're sitting in itself. We would love to have conversations, as I made mention to. We've had a lot of conversations with a number of individuals, and we want to bring everybody to the table to have meaningful dialogue.
The NAACP convention is in town for a couple of more days here in Charlotte. Trovon Williams is Senior Vice President of Marketing and Communications for them, and we will continue in just a moment.
Good morning. It's just about 9:20. I hope you're having a fantastic start to your day. Coming up on the next Charlotte Talks, the Southern accent, it's one of the most recognizable in the country, appears to be fading. The shifting of the population appears to be causing us to lose our twang and, with some of it, our identity. We explore the evolution of the various Southern accents, how they shape the way we talk today, and how accents are a powerful symbol of belonging. That's tomorrow morning at 9.
1 in 6 Americans regularly has headaches so severe they can't work, sleep, or function. Too often, patients live with the pain, and doctors and researchers overlook it. Why? and what's changing. Unraveling the mystery of migraine and cluster headaches, next time on 1A.
And you can tune into 1A coming up this morning at 10 o'clock right here on WFAE. Support comes from WFAE listeners and Mecklenburg County Solid Waste. This summer, Mecklenburg County's recycling centers offer 100% organic compost and mulch to help residents replenish and protect their soil. More information at mechmulchmadness.com. And Discovery Place Science, presenting Ocean Experience, an exhibition in Uptown Charlotte where visitors can explore a replica ocean research vessel and learn about humpback whales, orcas, and sharks. More at discoveryplace.org.
It's Charlotte Talks on Listener Funded, 90.7 WFAE and WFHE. I'm Mike Collins. We're talking today to Trovon Williams, Senior Vice President for Marketing and Communications for the NAACP Convention. Its 116th annual convention opened over the weekend here in Charlotte. We've been talking most recently about their decision, that organization's decision not to invite a sitting president. It broke with tradition to not invite Donald Trump. We did a little preview of your convention with some commentators last week on this program, and I asked a question that I'm going to ask you because they're just commentators, and you're in the organization. Stephen A. Smith, who I'm sure you're familiar with, an outspoken commentator on sports and culture and politics, commented on this very situation. He said, quote, "If you don't invite Trump and you ostracize and ignore him, how does that advance anything that the NAACP is trying to accomplish?" I'm sure that you've heard about that comment, maybe even heard him say it. How did you and others in your organization react to that? How do you respond to that?
I think that that data is important within any opinion itself. While I respect the sentiments of Stephen A. Smith itself, I think it's important that I'm not sure that he was measuring that statement based off of historical relevance. One is to the point that you made at the onset. We have invited the sitting president of the United States as a tradition of the NAACP from its inception, which means that the now president of the United States and former candidate for the president of the United States, and Donald Trump, had been invited to the NAACP convention a number of different times and had declined. As I made mention to at the onset, we're not going to let somebody come play in our face. As this has been the case over the last several years. So while I respect his sentiment, I think that it was a little bit measured in the fact that it probably was not based off of the fact that we had historically invited a sitting president, and this sitting president had declined the opportunity. So why keep going through this act with someone who has made it very, very clear that they have no intentions on coming and serving the best interests of our community at the same time?
I suppose not inviting any other previous president might have caused this stir. It would have certainly raised eyebrows, but then it probably would have just disappeared into the ether. This president is different in a number of ways, and in this way as well. On the campaign trail, Trump promised retribution against his political enemies and against those who attempt to thwart his policies. He has now gone after law firms. He's gone after institutions of higher education. He's gone after television networks and other media platforms. And in each of those cases, some of those entities have capitulated to what some describe as extortion. Does it concern you that this slight may cause him to come after you next?
Well, I would answer that question with a question to our nation at large. Does it concern you that a sitting president of the United States has made it a point to promise retribution upon the communities that he's supposed to be representing itself? Does this concern the NAACP? No, because we believe that not just from an organizational standpoint, but from a nation standpoint, we should be standing up against any and everybody who is speaking out against what we fundamentally believe is the fabric of this nation, which is democracy itself. That is not an NAACP stance. That is a nationwide stance. I don't care if you're white, brown, it doesn't matter what your color is. What you believe in fundamentally while being in this country should be based around the democracy and the Constitution itself. Anybody, whether it be the president, an elected official, etc., that is in opposition of that is a bully. Do we want to have bullies making the decisions on behalf of our nation, not just the NAACP someone who's under attack, but our nation itself is collectively under attack. And that's the question that we collect across the country need to come to terms with. Are you comfortable with someone in a position that's of so significance, not just in this nation, but across the entire world, making those sorts of promises and statements around something that you're supposed to be representative of?
These moves on the part of Donald Trump can only be successful if we allow it, if voters allow it. And yet a lot of people are on board 150% on this. Have we somehow lost the thread of who we are?
I think that there's going to be I'm a Bible kid. There's a part in the Bible that talks about somebody, the prodigal son came to himself. I think as a nation, we're going to come to ourselves in a moment and just look around and say, what are we actually doing here? I think corporations that have made really, really bold decisions over the last several months are going to come to themselves and realize, what did I actually commit myself to? History is going to be written. History is going to remember those who took healthcare away from 17 million people. History is going to remember those who rolled back on diversity, equity, inclusion, while also benefited immensely from the cultural renaissance that we've seen across the nation itself. And so I think as a collective, we need to be looking at ourselves in the mirror, both corporately, individually, institutionally, and making a determination as to what part of history do you want to be allotted with. This is going to swing back, as I may mention to Mike, it's going to. So what side of this do you want to be on?
You may have just answered my next question, but I'm going to ask it anyway, because the NAACP has made the statement, rest assured we will not be silent and we will not back down. This approach is in your DNA as an organization. It is why you started this organization in 1909. It's what's kept you going. It's why people continue to join the cause and join your organization to fight these kinds of fights. So you're accustomed to this. What would you tell these embattled organizations, some of whom are capitulating? Well, you may have already said it, but how would you give them the steel to do what you're doing?
I think that I just believe fundamentally that deep down in our core, and I maybe I'm naive in thinking this, but I'm going to be delusional in this respect. I believe fundamentally that people want to do good by people. I believe that we want to see our communities, not just the Black community, our collective communities thrive and advance. I think that we are in a bad moment as a nation. And I think organizations, institutions, individuals have made bad decisions, but that does not mean that you have to stick with those bad decisions themselves. If we align to the point that you made at the onset, and if we do not allow these things to materialize, then we can set this nation back on the course that we all find to be advantageous to the collective itself. And so I would just urge any organization, institution, individuals to stop for a minute and think about where we're going to be some year from now, 2 years from now, if we continue to roll back those things that we have fundamentally fought for collectively on behalf of our nation.
For most of the NAACP's history since 1909, you've been working toward opening doors. Dr. King was working on opening doors during the civil rights movement and bringing equal opportunity and voting rights, etc., to people who had been excluded from this because of the color of their skin. And right now, what we're witnessing is an attempt to close doors, and not just for Black people, but for people of all colors and socioeconomic categories. Is this fight, in your mind, more difficult, more serious, more important?
I would probably lean it more towards it has to be more measured. I don't think it's more difficult than we've seen traditionally. I think the fight in advocacy has just evolved, and we just need to make sure that we are capturing the right tools on behalf of the community that we are representing. And that's not just for the Black community itself, that's across all communities, quite frankly. How we go about fighting in moments like this requires a different level of ingenuity, a different level of innovation, and how we go about those things. There's some things that we are fundamentally going to always do. Demonstration, protest are fundamentally who this organization is. But how do we take those fights, not just from just the corners, but also to Capitol Hill, not just from, from boardrooms all the way to bodegas. We need to be able to do these things in a multitude of different fashions as well. And so I don't know that it's more difficult. It just requires a different level of dare I say, ingenuity as to how we go about it. We can't do it the way we've always done it, but fundamentally, I think if we do it collectively, we'll be successful in that.
Trovon Williams is Senior Vice President for Marketing and Communications for the NAACP. Their 116th annual convention is in Charlotte. Some view this as a continuation of really what happened after the end of Reconstruction in the 1800s, when white supremacists were victorious over the federal government and ended this Reconstruction movement, and then reversed the rights that were gained during Reconstruction by formerly enslaved black people. They succeeded, and Jim Crow was instituted and stayed that way for about 100 years. Does your organization see what's happening now through that lens or in some different way?
I think that's a fair analogy that you're making in real time. And I think to that point, communities outside of the Black community, outside of the NAACP, should be looking at it very similarly as well. The attack on women and the attack on LGBTQ plus and the advancement that they've made as well, we're going in the wrong direction for the advancement thereof. And so absolutely, I see that pendulum swinging in the other direction. Some of the things that are being done to dismantle a lot of the advancements that have been acquired over the last several years becomes under attack. And that's what becomes key right now. Even if we're not advancing something right now, we have to preserve what has been acquired, fought for over the last several years. And so I think organizations, communities that who have seen a level of progression need to take that into consideration as much as possible, that we are protecting what we have fought for and looking for the opportunity to advance it in the near future.
Well, let's talk about narratives, because one of the things that has allowed this to happen is that Republicans in general, as opposed to Democrats, and Donald Trump in particular, are very good at telling a story. They're very good at creating a narrative, sticking to that narrative, and hammering it home. So let's talk about narratives. Both sides have a story to tell. The NAACP has said that several recent political efforts have been, quote, rooted in narratives to both downplay and erase the existence of systemic racism, and have been used as fear-mongering tactic from conservative outlets to scare and galvanize their base into thinking that black people and people of color are trying to strip rights away from white America. That's a quote. Some may not like the message, but it plays into legitimate fears that a group of people have who no longer believe that the American dream is working for them, and they need someone to blame. So how do you reverse or counter that narrative?
Well, wow, I have so much to say about that. I'm being honest.
Go ahead. The floor is yours.
So one, and I think you said something, and as I may mention too, NAACP is a nonpartisan organization. I can speak from a communication messaging standpoint, as well as that the Republican Party has done a phenomenal job of being consistent in the message that they if I gave them talking points, everyone within their their party lines have stuck to those talking points themselves, and they've been very, very they've beat the drum consistently across the targeted areas that they needed in order to advance things itself as well. And I say on the onset of that, the Democratic Party needs to step their game up immensely when it comes to the storytelling, reacting to what's happening. It's not telling the story. It's not positioning communities across this nation to see the benefit associated with supporting a party affiliation itself. And so I think in some cases, specifically on the behalf of the Black community, we've seen that the Democratic Party has taken the Black vote for granted in many respects. And that has, in some cases, they got a little lazy. If you were to ask Trovon, I'm not speaking on behalf of the organization, I'm telling Trovon, I think they've gotten a bit lazy with their messaging itself. It becomes absolutely vital for them to get in a room figure out what they're trying to message to across the nation, not just to the Black community, but the communities at large, in order to build a level of equity and trust back across the nation. Reacting to what the Republicans are doing is the bit, that's I took my ball and went home, or I went and told the teacher. You got to roll your sleeves up and get ready for the fight. And I don't think we've seen enough of the fight within the Democratic Party, and that's sort of the narrative that they need to be fostering.
But you've just illustrated the problem that they face. The Republican Party at the moment serves one coalition.
Exactly.
The Make America Great Again coalition. Everything else has fallen by the wayside.
Yep.
You're upset because the Democrats haven't done a good job for African Americans. They have taken them for granted. Those are your words. But you're not the only coalition that the Democratic Party is trying to serve. They're serving 10 or 15 or God knows how many different coalitions, all of whom have different goals and different wants, and sometimes they are at cross purposes. So when you have this so-called big tent party and you're trying to bring everybody in, it becomes almost impossible to have a singular message and stick to it. And in the media, the bifurcated media environment that we have now, marching in lockstep gives you a howitzer when everybody else is playing with paper guns.
Completely fair, completely fair. And I only speak to it from the community that I'm representing itself, but I think they're collective. They have just not had a consistent, unified message across. I don't know what the collective message is from the Democratic Party, period, full stop. I don't, whether they got the big tent or the small tent. I don't know what they're fundamentally fighting for, and they haven't done a great job of messaging that collectively in a way that, whether I'm hearing from the Congress or whether I'm hearing from the Senate, I don't know that their message is resonating in the same way. And so more so with what I mean by they need to lock themselves in the room is that they need to figure out how they go about winning on behalf of the on the party that they represent. Maybe those other things.
We think we have lost Trovon. There we go. I think you're back, or you were back. Nope, I think we have lost him temporarily here. We will try to reestablish this. Somehow we have a bad internet connection on his end. Trovon Williams is Senior Vice President for Marketing. And
thank you for listening to Charlotte Talks. We are experiencing technical difficulties. We are working to address the issue and appreciate your patience. Thank you for listening to Charlotte Talks. We are experiencing technical difficulties. It's 9:40. You're listening to Charlotte Talks. Coming up on 1A, 1 in 6 Americans regularly has headaches so severe that they can't sleep, they can't work, they can't function. Too often, patients live with the pain, and doctors and researchers overlook it. Why and what's changing? Unraveling the mystery of migraine and cluster headaches next time on 1A, coming up this morning at 10 o'clock.
I'm Scott Simon. If you've raised children, you know the best way to address fear is with truthful information, calmly and comfortingly delivered. That's what NPR News always tries to do in times of crisis, too. That old car in your driveway can actually help us. By donating it to this station, you'll turn your car into more solid information brought to you by voices you trust. Here's how.
Just head to WFAE.org/cars. With the WFAE mobile app, you can take WFAE with you wherever you go. You can listen to your favorite programs live or catch up on past episodes of one of our podcasts. It's radio without the radio. Enjoy engaging conversations, interviews, and stories that matter, all while on the move. Download the WFAE app now and experience the power of public radio in your pocket. Find it at the Apple App Store or on Google Play.
It's Charlotte Talks on WFAE and WFAE.org. I'm Mike Collins. We had a little technical glitch, a little difficulty, which we have cleared up now. Trovon Williams is with us. He's the Senior Vice President of Marketing and Communications with the NAACP, or the NAACP, as they like to say now. We've kind of lost the thread of where we were before. So let's just take a different turn here, because you're the Vice President of Marketing. You create the narrative for the NAACP. You tell your own story. That's your job. And you have this philosophy of keeping it bold, blunt, and brief. It seems that would also be platform independent. There's so many different platforms now on which you get messages out. So how are you reaching all these different age groups within your own coalition and different members who are not just Black people in the NAACP? How do you reach them? What's the message?
So great question. I thank you for that setup there. I think what's become very, very vital for our community at large is to understand that really how we're getting messaging and how we're communicating with communities across the country has changed immensely over the last several years itself. Technology and advancements themselves have allowed us to be able to be right into I can go right into your hand now with a phone and different things of that sort. And so how do I get a message across and resonating with the community that I serve? Most of those who are affiliated with the association know why they decided that they want to become members of the NAACP. And so in most cases, our bold, blunt, and brief methodology is geared around those who are already action-oriented. These are the people who have already drank the Kool-Aid proverbially, and they're ready to go. And so how we message to them allows us to be able to get them to call to action. We give them the educational components that we want them to have. We tell them about the impacts that they're having in real time. And then we also try to be very, very strategic in how we deliver that message about how they're impacting the community. I think it's very important for us to make sure that we're letting the community at large know how they're helping us to advance the narrative on behalf of the community itself. And we believe in that, equity across our country is vital. And so ensuring that our community has the opportunity to see how they're advancing those things through our messaging, whether it be through social, digital, and then quite frankly, through platforms like this, it allows us to be able to share that methodology across platforms and be able to deliver a message that is more appetizing and more immediate to the audience that we're serving.
I watched an interview that you did with someone else with you the other day, and you described the NAACP as a bottom-up organization so that your message comes from your members and they tell you what's important, and then you use the tools that you have as a marketing professional to craft that message and make those ideas coalesce and get the message out. So give me an example of that. What are your members telling you? What have they told you during this convention? And then how do you translate that into messaging?
It's a fantastic question. Today at our convention, even as we're sitting here right now, we are getting ready to start our resolutions process. And it is the absolute symbolic gesture that I was just speaking about with the organization being bottom up. The advocacy that the organization is contending on behalf of community comes from our local branches and units themselves. Our resolutions process is from branches and units all across the country. They are coming here as delegates to effectively put forth the issue areas that the organization should be contending for, help us to position the organization, and based off of how the organization collectively votes on those resolutions, that tells us how we're going to go about defending particular areas. These are the things that the organization or the community across this nation have told us NAACP needs to be advocating on behalf of, whether it be making sure Black history is being taught in schools, whether it's equal pay for females, all of these different things. They're telling us what the issue areas that are near and dear to our community so that we can use our national resources and different things of that sort to better position the organization itself. And so in real time today, it's going to be a very, very long day at the association. If Chairman Russell was here, he would say, this is the business of the NAACP right now, where units from all across the country. President Johnson uses this analogy often that a gentleman who is a janitor a few years ago was going back and forth with somebody with a resolution who was with somebody who's a rocket scientist. You have equal billing on that floor to be able to advocate on behalf of the community itself. And that's what that bottom up structure that we believe in so heavily. And that's what we're seeing happen in real time today.
The NAACP has been working for social justice since the very beginning. Civil rights is a subset of that, because it's not just about civil rights. It's not just about voting rights, or it's about equal treatment. It's about fair treatment by law enforcement and by the courts. It's about erasing educational, career, and healthcare disparities. Your organization has been doing this for a long time, and yet today, Black people are incarcerated still 5 times more than white people. And although you say 65% of Black adults have felt targeted because of their race, 35% of Latinos and Asian adults feel targeted as well. And this big, beautiful bill that was recently passed and signed will cut Medicaid, as you have alluded to, for millions of people: poor people, Black people, white people, Latino people, Asian people, you name it, they're on the list. They're going to lose access to this health care. I think 600,000 people in North Carolina alone are at risk. Why is this such a struggle in a nation that professes to be democratic and professes to care about people, etc.? Why is this a problem?
I think you hit on it previously, Mike, with regards to narrative. I think the story that's being told around this big, beautiful bill, which we call a big, ugly bill, has been lost on a lot of individuals who, quite frankly, enabled elected officials to push forth a methodology or a message that is in direct conflict of their livelihoods. Many individuals who, to your point, who have adopted sort of this methodology around this Make America Great Again campaign method doesn't realize that it's going to be at their absolute consequence in this moment. You made this to 600,000 people within North Carolina, 200,000 people in South Carolina, 700,000 people in Georgia. It's going to happen to everybody collectively, whether you're black, brown, or white.
And there are a lot of Americans who believe that ordinary Americans, so-called middle-class Americans, will be better off under a Democratic administration, while still others believe that they're better off during a Donald Trump administration. And many of the people who pulled the lever for Mr. Trump did so because they believed then and continue to believe now that he is on their side and will do a better job of improving their lives. And it isn't just white people. A lot of Latinos moved over to Trump. And so did a number of Black voters move over to Trump. In 2016, 6% of Black voters supported candidate Trump. In 2020, 8% supported him for re-election. In 2024, the number rose to 15% of Black voters supporting him over Kamala Harris. That's a doubling of support for Donald Trump among Black voters, even with a Black woman in the race. How do you explain that?
Well, I have a couple different views on that as well. I think we found a hit on it from a multitude of different things, and I think the message that was being fostered within the community itself, across the campaign efforts by the Republican, they did a masterful job of pushing a narrative that in many cases individuals did not give realization that it was actually to their actual detriment in many respects. I think the other part becomes key as well is to factor in the fact that Vice President Kamala Harris was given the baton after everybody else was running off the turn. So even from the standpoint of her taking on the road, the amount of headway and the amount that enclosed with regards to her campaign itself was really incredible when you think about when this handoff took place with regards to her taking on as the top candidate for the Democratic Party itself.
But she had Trevon, she had a message. There's no question that she had a message. She had to kind of fall into it and find her footing because she came late to the race. But she eventually did find it, and it didn't resonate. And if that message doesn't resonate with ordinary people, what does?
Well, I push back only in the instance that I think that the message that the Republican Party was fostering had a longer runway, had more time
Okay.
to be able to materialize. I think
And
that
yet,
it,
and yet, they still haven't come up with a message.
and yet they still haven't. That to me is the larger issue, is that if you know based on the runway necessary in order for this message to start to stick, you need to come up with a message and start fostering it right now in order to start to turn the ship in your direction. And right now, that's the
So
issue.
you have said that and you've pointed this out several times, that the NAACP is a nonpartisan organization. You welcome Republicans into the fold just as much as Democrats. We've been spending a lot of time talking about deficient messages from Democrats and the excellent messaging of Republicans. It would seem to me that if you feel, as has been stated by your president and others in the organization, that this current administration is chopping away at democratic ideals and rights and is operating against the ideals expressed in the Constitution, that you would want to have a dialogue with those people. Because it has been said by many people that Donald Trump listens to the last person to whom he spoke. So if you're the last people that he speaks with, perhaps you could make some inroads in changing some policies. So why not have that dialogue?
I think that the opportunity to have that dialogue has been put on the table several times over and had been passed on. And quite frankly, I think there's probably individuals around President Trump who don't want him to sit down and have the conversation with us in many respects as well, because it's not advantageous to them in that respect as well. I think that the as I mentioned too, we're basing this off of behavior. We've invited the sitting president numerous times over. We've invited President Trump, as I remember correctly, back in 2019 when I had just joined the organization. When we were in Detroit, he didn't show up there either. So, we're only basing this off of his history itself and what he's done in some cases to dismantle the advancements of community itself. That's just it
Americans have lost trust in a lot of the institutions that they take for granted: the government, science, medicine, higher education, the media. Well, guess what? The NAACP, by virtue of the fact that it's been around for 116 years, is one of those institutions. So I'm wondering how young people see you today, because the need was great in 1909. It was great in 1963. It continues to be great today. But do they trust you because you're an institution? You're one of those things that have been here forever.
Absolutely. And I think we've seen tremendous advancement with regard to our youth in college and our young people. And I say young people in the instance that more than half of Black Americans 32 years of age or younger now. And so in order for me to be relevant to a younger demographic, I have to speak to them. And speaking to them, and I'm not 32 years of age, but what I can tell you is that in speaking and messaging across platforms themselves, telling our younger audience about the historical nature of the NAACP is not what's going to resonate with them. Telling them about their opportunity to be impactful, influential, and finding the resource necessary to help advance them within whether it be their career opportunities, community opportunities. That's what's resonating with our younger people. And so we're offering the platform to them. This is their organization to move forward as much as possible. Not for us to tell them historical relevance of the NAACP, but for us to put ourselves in a position to say, how can we be a better asset to you? And how we assist those individuals now has to evolve in order to meet the needs of the community that we serve.
Have attacks on DEI, have attempts to change the way we teach American history, what books can be in the library, etc., have they aided you in transmitting a sense of urgency to people who may not be a member of your organization but might be valuable members should they be attracted to it?
I think so. It's unfortunate that that's the scenario that we're fostering, but I think in many cases when there is a bit of conflict or chaos that is running rampant, you're looking for the level of consistency. And I think that organization offers the consistency necessary. And I think what we have done intentionally through our leadership and the vision of our president and CEO, Derek Johnson, is to offer the table to our younger demographic as much as possible to say, how do we better serve you? We cannot do things the way we've always done that. Our convention is a great indication of that as well, with the conversations that we're having around AI and different things of that sort, equity and financial opportunities itself. We're advancing the conversation beyond just social justice, just voting rights, into how do we stabilize our community amongst ourselves, and offering the opportunity through job fairs and college educational conversations. Those are the conversations that we need to talk about. A lot of conversations around mental health, things that our community, in many cases, it was a little late to the party on. We need to make these things as prominent, as amplified as possible. And so those things are the things that our younger demographic is interested in. Then this is a space for them right now, because we're making those things available.
The purpose of all conventions, I don't care what organization you are, the purpose of the convention is to bring members of your organization together in one place at one time, to give them a sense of belonging to the group at large, like-minded individuals, to hammer out and hone a message, understand the mission more intimately, to energize attendees to continue the work of the organization when they go back home, etc. How do you keep that kind of momentum that people get in these collective environments? How do you keep that momentum going when they go back home?
I think that's a great question, Mike. And I think what we focused on specifically over the last several months, and we're seeing in real time, is a hyper-local approach. While I represent the national organization itself, we have 2,200 branches across this country. And in order to do exactly what you just said, to build momentum coming out of this national convention, we have to be on the ground with methodology itself. And so a lot of the efforts that you're seeing that are being organized here in real time, our field and membership and units team are working in real time to take those things into our regions across the country, so that we can keep adopting these things long term. We re-implemented after COVID-19 our Kratai, which is our opportunity to go into the communities, train them up on how to mobilize and organize more effectively, but then also just having base level conversations. How do we go into the communities, have town halls necessary in order to get the information necessary so that we are a better resource for our community? That's what we're working on.
You have said that you've learned a lot by failing fast, that you don't win every battle, but you are going to win the long game, which harkens back to what Dr. King referred to as the arc of the moral universe being long, but bending toward justice. Trovon Martin is Senior Vice President of Marketing and Communications for the NAACP, their 116th annual convention in Charlotte over the weekend. And now, thank you for the hour.
Charlotte Talks is a production of 90.7 WFAE. Support for Charlotte Talks comes from Mazda of South Charlotte. Our executive producer is Gabe Altieri. The senior producer is Sarah D'Elia. Our producer is Chris Jones. For more information about Charlotte Talks, to listen to past episodes, or to subscribe to the Charlotte Talks podcast, visit WFAE.org/Charlotte Talks. Additional support for WFAE programming comes from the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, a private corporation funded by the American people.
Good morning. It's just about 10 o'clock. Coming up next is 1A right here on WFAE. And if you missed any of today's episode of Charlotte Talks, you can be sure to catch it on the Charlotte Talks podcast. Coming up on tomorrow's episode, the evolution of Southern dialects and what the changes we're living through mean for our culture and our sense of belonging. That's tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock. Support comes from WFAE listeners and Blumenthal Arts, presenting Ain't Too Proud, the story of the Temptations' rise from Detroit to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame amid a decade of unrest, July 18th through 20th at Belk Theater. More at Blumenthal.